Hello there everyone, welcome back. It's time to show off another of the new factions that are going to be introduced in Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2. This time around I'm going to be playing with the town merchant fleet, which, at least my impression anyway, going into it is that they're going to be relying heavily, almost exclusively on their fighters and their bombers, with a little help from their secret missiles because their macro weaponry, their railguns are kind of pitiful, or at least a lot more hard to fully utilize, at least in comparison to the Protector fleet, which basically have all their railguns as turrets, or they're centered along the prow, which synergize amazingly well with the adaptive deflectors that the fleet actually have access to give them their additional armor. Not so much the case for the merchant fleet, for the only ship that actually has the adaptive deflector, which is the hero cruiser, and the majority of its weaponry is stuck on the broadside, if I were to be perfectly honest. Actually, let me demonstrate on the ship viewer itself to really emphasize this point. This thing only has 4 railgun batteries that even shoot at the front there. We have the 2 here, which are more like turrets, and then where's the other ones? It might help. There they are. I was kind of half wondering if this was the wrong variant I was going for, but yeah, 2 small railguns that shoot exclusively on the prow, although the arc looks a little bit off, mind you, but it strictly says the front, so firepower utilizing the adaptive deflector is kind of very restricted. On the plus side, though, its broadside weaponry is actually decent, I suppose, with like, I take that back. When you compare it to like Imperial Navy, it's kind of lackluster, but the one thing it has going for it again, adaptive deflector, and all the hit points are pretty much normal, and by normal I mean they're equivalent to the Imperial Navy, the Mechanicus, anything that, at least what we understand would be the average hit point value for Armada 1. So with that said, let's have a quick look at the abilities. We already know about the supercharged void shield, the beacon there. In this case, as opposed to the Ashuriani that I did last video, this beacon will stop at your destination deploy itself, which can be really useful as like a area effect deterrent for anything that's relying on stealth. I'm looking at you, Jukari, and Tyranids that want to stay hidden. You could just place this in some area you suspect they might be at, or at least cover one of your blind sides, or at least deter them from a certain path at least. So at least with it being fixed, that's useful. We got the Auger Disruption Bomb there, say everything's kind of what, as you know, there's nothing really noteworthy for these generic abilities. But here's what's different. We have the Experimental Railgun, which you remember from Armada 1, and the wording is off here. I'm pretty certain this thing does 300 damage now, as opposed to the 100 it did before, so there are a lot of little nuances to keep in mind here that are going to need to be tweaked and fixed up. But this is a lot more potent than it looks. It does have only 3 shots for your flagship, so you need to make them count. We also have the Gravity Wave Projector, which I don't know if it's exactly like it was in Armada 1. I feel like it pushes, well, it distinguishes the amount it pushes is based on how large the ship is, which I think Armada 1 was always the same, so that's something to keep an eye on. And last but not least, the repair drones. Before it was like 1 hit point a second, it's been cranked up to 6 hull points a second, which arguably makes it even more powerful than Armada 1 when you consider you only have like 3 line ships, or at least 3 capital ships to even possibly benefit off repair drones. So this has got amazing potential. However, it does have like the Necron's diminishing returns, as I want to call it, where they slowly lose the maximum potential amount of hit points they can get. So it's not like it can run away and kite all day. Hell, the town merchant fleet is like almost exclusively a bunch of Emperor speed ships. They all go the same speed as the Emperor. So it's not like you're going to be running the best without some help with like stasis bombs or the gravity wave projector. Otherwise, for upgrades, navigational field, extended sensor range is pretty straightforward. Your flagship could get increased ion cannon range, which is an awkward one, since I think at most, almost all the Tau ships, I'm including the Protectors, only got like 2 ion cannons each, and you don't even really consider them as your main weaponry. It's just something to soften something up and do consistent damage. And I kind of forgot to mention up to this point is, I did kind of like exploit a little bit on the fact that if you're not connected to the internet, it unlocks everything for you, so hell. All these skills are unlocked for me, but I can't play multiplayer or really anything else there, so thank you to whoever it was that suggested doing that. At least I can demonstrate it. Most of these upgrades probably won't matter, and as far as me leveling up for multiplayer purposes, but I did get to level 8. to unlock the experimental manifolds, which is one half of the Aircast favors upgrade. I nerfed a tiny bit, but with what I said already, how slow these damn things are, it's really damn important to at least give myself some more breathing room. I want to argue at least. Otherwise, we have the strobe field, which is the other half of the Aircast favor upgrade, which, if you use all head full or using your boosters basically, it reduces the accuracy of attacks on you. So if you want to get your Aircast favor, or at least as close as you can to it, you're going to have to invest both your upgrade slots to this. And sadly, this does not transfer over to the frigates, as convenient as that could be, since it is kind of odd seeing cruisers, let alone a battleship for crying out loud, being like so much more faster than the goddamn frigates, let alone the Tau frigates, which basically go the same speed in most cases to the actual cruisers. Otherwise, what else we have? We have the Seeker turrets, which is kind of a return to the, what is it, Marker Lights I think it's called for Armada 1, but it's only applied to your flagship. And with the case of battleships, I think this would do a total of 9 damage with 18 point defense. I just don't know if this is mitigated by armor, mind you, but if you're doing like a 2v2, this would be a perfect candidate for it, since you're normally only going to have one battleship, or at least one ship for that. So you could get some really good value out of this potentially. And I like it visually because it shows every single one of your point defense going off constantly. It's quite the sight to see. Targeting Coordinator, I believe this is brand new. If one of your frigates is on lock-on stance and within sensor range of your capital ships, or really any ship, their accuracy is improved. And what exceptional accuracy basically means is it's the equivalent to what the Eldari have for their accuracy. I can't remember the fall off. I think it's like 85% at point blank range, or at least close range, and then it falls off by 50%, as opposed to like the 80, 60, 40 accuracy that we're used to with most of these factions. So this is useful for like railgun based play. Otherwise, what's left? The fire cast favor is here with the guaranteed fire as well as the destroyed turret effect, which is new. But this is interesting. Water cast diplomat. If you're investing heavily in a lot of crude war spears and the demiurge, they basically will not cause a mutiny, which is kind of a big factor when you consider the demiurge. Hell, I kind of would have wished to see the Citadel, which is the light cruiser variant of the demiurge, since that would have been able to do solid running and potentially be like a scout. But I mentioned like some of my videos way back when that the demiurge, the option to have like an all demiurge type fleet, is like the unofficial 13th faction. Hell, apparently, I take that back, I guess. I was kind of hoping a stronghold could be aligned, or the admiral ship. That does not seem to be a case. I'm a little bit disappointed by that. That would have been amazing to have nothing but demiurge if you so wish. So, Tindalos, if you're listening, this could be a suggestion for you, since that was a possibility in the board game, I believe. I could be wrong there, mind you, since I haven't officially played it myself. But one thing that's really important to note as far as like these mercenary ships here is the Crew War Spear has been completely retuned. It's got the maximum heavy armor there. It's, as you can tell, a lot more expensive as opposed to like 103 points, I think. And of course, it's, as you know it there, it's just the armor that's quite significant. Hell, its mobility's been boosted up quite a bit. It's the same speed actually as, the rest of the merchant fleet almost. So 120, that's this, at least would be the equivalent of the Emperor for Armada 2. So these things are pretty damn slow. And when I mean the Emperor, I'm referring to the Imperial Navy's Emperor. The only one that actually goes normal speed, as per that, is like the Hero. And with its adaptive deflector, this thing's going to be mostly soaking. At least soaking damage there. Otherwise, we already kind of seen what I was going to be fielding for my multiplayer matches to kind of showcase this. I got 3 of the heroes, 2 of the merchant fleets, and or not merchants, but the, damn it, I'm the Explorer. Good God, I almost forgot what the call sign, the name, the designation for these damn battleships are called. The Explorer, which sadly it doesn't have on here for me to easily distinguish, but these ones are the carrier boat ones. They have 4 hangar bays. The other one had like 8 seeker missiles. And I was experimenting with the seeker missiles, but they're really awkward to utilize, I'm going to be honest. Especially when you have these 3 heroes in front of your battleships. It's really easy to hit yourself, but the potential, the damage potential, cannot be denied if these things start hitting, like I said. They do 90 damage and they ignore armor pretty much. So they're going to hurt something if they can get to their target. But otherwise, we're going to be going all focused entirely on the fighters and bombers, and we're going to try and demonstrate how it works. And I would like to experiment more with the light cruisers, which are the merchant class cruisers, but they're strictly meant for utility and kind of like gunboats essentially. Or at least it was what you could consider gunboats. Hell, when you consider the 3 gravitic hooks, don't look at this. This is a lie. This thing's actually equipped with 3 gravitic hooks. That reduces the point value for these battleships to like 190, just under 200 points, when you factor in the Orcas being 32 points. So these battleships are cheap. Don't be fooled by the little inflation there. And the frigates are going to be pretty handy. But otherwise, let's talk about what I'm going to be feeling for this. I already showed you what my fleet itself is going to be. But for upgrades, we got the probe and stasis bomb. I think this could be pretty self-explanatory with a lot I hinted at. But what I'm going to be taking, at least until I just unlocked this experimental manifold, I actually was taking the target coordinator and the emission dissipator for my frigates. Especially in the cases of Drukhari and maybe Tyranids, it allows me to boost on forward and uses my frigates to kind of like be in the middle of the map, since they are really damn slow. If they were any faster, I probably wouldn't even need the emission dissipator all that much. But that's what I'm going to be fielding, so let's fix our game so we can get into the actual multiplayer, shall we? Alright, facing off against Chaos. This will be interesting, since really it depends what my opponent's going to be fielding. If it's all lances, then potentially I could have a field day with my fighters there harassing, maybe destroying point defense. A lot of it does come down to where the placement of the gas fields are, or gas clouds. That's really what it comes down to if I want to get aggressive with my fighters, since the strategy is going to try and soften up their point defense. That way I can kind of send my seeker missiles and my bombers almost unhindered, especially if any of his ships get isolated or spread out in any way. That's kind of the main strategy. It remains to be seen if it's going to work that way, because we already got some gas clouds which are going to make it tricky, but I do have a beacon to help alleviate that a decent amount at least. I just gotta wait for it to get in position. Where's my opponent likely to deploy? Since this is going to be a central area where these 3 points are, I'm going to guess maybe somewhere a little more on the right, maybe? It's hard to say, since if Chaos is going carrier base, as opposed to like some weird macro, well, long range is what I mean, not carrier base, then they're going to want to keep at a distance anyway, and it's going to be hard for them to get at like a central area. Really hard to say. We're going to have to play it by ear and see. Nonetheless, silent emission dissipators in effect. My opponent's out in the middle of nowhere, which is kind of decent for me, at least making sure I spot the gas cloud. I don't really care so much about detecting right away. I kind of have fighters for that to an extent. And I have 5 fighter squadrons. I just wish I knew which ones were the capital ships, so I should do this the traditional way, since we know already which one is the flagship or the admiral ship, but based on it using its ability. So that's something I'm gonna have to refine a tiny bit. Maybe have my heroes and explorers on like different hotkeys, at least to make that simpler, since I don't know which it would launch first, my explorers, my battleships, or the cruisers first, because I'd rather try and capitalize on hitting the flagship, or at least their biggest ships, since that would be the hardest for them to dodge my seeker missiles. And already we got ourselves something hit in there, so we can deal with that. We know it's a frigate and already 3 points on there. That goes to show how much more faster Chaos is. It's not a big deal just yet, because apparently my opponent's not doing anything. That could be their undoing if they do this wrong. No, nothing's detected just yet. There's no real reason to detect them just yet anyway, if I were to be honest. And sure, spot me. If I use these fighters effectively, then this is not a problem. And this time I'm going to focus more on the middle squad. I want to kill off as many point defenses as I can. I don't even need to engage. This is kind of what Tau wants. And since kind of just sitting there, let me actually take these points to kind of like equal the playing field a bit. It remains to be seen if they're actually carrier ships, mind you, since nothing's been launched yet. But I am going to get fission, and that opens up secret missile possibilities.
That cannot be done.
I need fission first. That's what I'm waiting for. Come on.
Drones have identified an enemy.
So we got Grand Cruisers and a battleship. Hopefully they do the damage needed to. And hopefully my fighters, where are my fighters? Okay, the second squadron is kind of way underway. And point defense are getting shot down. Do they do the damage they need to? Hard to say, but you are a little bit slow, buddy. That you should have done that ages ago, if I were to be so honest. Oh well. I could just stay here, and ideally, if I were smart, I would use this asteroid belt to full effect. If I were to be serious. Yeah, this is pretty straightforward so far. Thanks for kind of helping me demonstrate what I have in mind. This is kind of not the battle I was expecting, mind you, but you can kind of see the effect in action there. At least on the plus side, let's see. There. There's some good hits there, although, let's see. It helps. I lost my train of thought when my opponent asked that question there. What was I going to say? I don't know. That may seem overwhelming, but lucky. There's nothing. Okay, I think I'm done talking to my opponent there. But I think we got an easy way about killing this off. Point defense are gone on everything, almost. Let's not jinx ourselves. There's only one ship, well, two ships actually. Probably because I didn't make them the focus. This is not going to be pretty, folks. This is very reminiscent of our Tau experience back in Armada 1, isn't it? Which does make me feel a little bit bad, mainly because I've had bad experience fighting up against Tau, mainly the Custodian, in all honesty. I don't think it's an issue with everything else, but this feels very reminiscent, and I do have a little bit of empathy for my opponent, but this is like almost a perfect demonstration, isn't it? Because now there's no point defense, I just gotta hang back and take my time with this. Since, yeah, I could potentially just kill off the second ship here. My fighters are actually returning, most of them anyway, so I'm gonna get refunded on that to an extent. So long as I get all these points and don't squander my frigates needlessly, because that's pretty important too. Since these frigates can actually just hang behind and just harass these ships from the rear, is one good value they have. And there's one important thing to note with this asteroid belt that very few people probably realize. If you stand perfectly still and don't have anything detecting you currently, you can use these asteroid belts to kind of like conceal yourself again. Which is another thing I'm concerned about when relying so heavily on fighters and bombers, mind you. But that is a trick you can utilize, but I currently have a fighter squadron in there, so that's not a problem at all. And also I am worried about my facing on my heroes, because since they're currently by default wanting to focus on broadside engagements, so that could be a bit problematic for when I want to fire seeker missiles. Unless you change that, that would be the exception. Otherwise, this looks like an incredibly straightforward battle. We're not out of it yet though. Again, I have really poor close range firepower, but I do have the durability and I do have 3 heroes for crying out loud to kind of soak the brunt of this damage. Hell, I'd go so far as to argue I want to ram them, since I would do more ramming damage with these cruisers. I just gotta keep in mind these things still have point defense, and at least 2 of these 3 cruisers, so my bombing potential is not going to be nearly as effective. But they are hitting nonetheless. And I'm out of seeker missiles, so let's be careful on that. And also be mindful that a lot of people like to fixate on the flagship, and for good reason. Since if this thing dies, I suffer a huge morale bonus or penalty. Which is... so I do need to be mindful of his positioning at all times, and not make it a easy vulnerable target. Which thankfully, if I'm smart about it, these heroes are automatically the majority of the time in front of my battleship, so that's not a huge issue. But that's really all she wrote there. Let's have a look to how my frigates are doing there on the battlefield. They are capturing points, although I'd rather turn around and just annoy this one here. Oh, it's already mutiny. So never mind, I don't need to go after that. Let's just make this a complete domination, shall we? And I gotta remember my hotkeys there. There we go. Repairs are underway. Which one doesn't have point defense? You don't? Oh, they're both crippled. So really, it's just my choice. Well, all I have to really say, that's probably as perfect as of a demonstration as I could ask for on what to expect on such a bomber-heavy fleet, or rather, a carrier-heavy fleet, rather. It can be effective, especially if your opponent doesn't have anything to intercept them early, since if there's any fighters, if they have any carriers of their own, my fighters, more often than not, especially if they get attacked by their fighters, will just stop and engage their fighters. I even think if I launch the bombers without any support, they also stop the bombers from chasing after their target as well. So that would be an amazing way to stop bombers almost immediately there, since bombers in most cases cannot really stop any fighter squadrons unless there's like maybe a custodian versus a light cruiser with its 2 hangar bays. Maybe would be a case your bombers or mantis would survive. But there was another thing I failed to point out, is that we actually have stats, but I think it's only in game there that shows the amount of damage, how much hit points the fighters and bombers actually have now. I don't think it actually shows on here. No, it doesn't. So if I can think on that, I will try and show it, at least so we can understand a little bit more of this mechanics. I have yet to look at the Eldari, how they function, at least their bombers and fighters in comparison to the Tau, let alone every other fleet that has like a heavy amount of fighters. But it's good to see that information out there now, because that was my one real worry with going with carriers, since I kind of have no idea what damage they do. It made it more like a leap of faith, whereas I knew the torpedoes, the seeker missiles did like 90 damage, so I initially started experimenting with heavy seeker missile play, but I'm really liking the potential of a whole bunch of fighters, mind you. Alright, the Mechanicus. This will be interesting, since I did talk about how slow my ships are. So Nova cans could be a bit problematic here, but at the same time, my ships have like some of the best turning radius of pretty much any fleet in the game, I want to argue, outside of Eldar. But they don't have the convenience of a high energy turn, mind you, to kind of like rapidly reposition whatever necessary. So even then, I would argue to some extent, some situations that even the Tau are even more mobile. Especially when I have my upgrades for additional, the aircast favor for even higher turning radius. I'm losing my train of thought a tiny bit here for some reason. Maybe because I've been thrown off since I forfeited a match against another Chaos player. I think it may even been the same opponent, mind you. But I want to show a little bit of diversity at least. And Mechanicus is probably a good way to go about that. Otherwise, what do I expect? Yeah, in all honesty, I don't know what to expect. Oh, I forgot to hotkey my frigates there. I'm getting thrown off even more. This is not a good omen. Normally, this means I'm kind of screwing myself over, aren't I? At least I demonstrate the idea behind this fleet. At least the Tau Merchant fleet in general. Now it's just a matter of if I can win or not. That's what it's going to come down to here. Now, oh god, I unbinded my merchant fleet. Never mind the fact that I just did not give them silent running. They do have a mission dissipator, so that's not a huge issue. Not exactly what I would have wanted. Now, do we have a lot of targets to choose from here, which tells me we don't really have a battleship to contend with. So, let's be a little more generous. I'm not going to launch everything, but it's a good opportunity to see. Ooh, my one battleship didn't launch as fighters, so maybe, judging by what I said last match, that I think it prioritizes the heroes first, maybe? I don't know, maybe whatever is closest, if I had to guess. That's the only conclusion I can really come to. So I'm learning something here, maybe not much, but that will be important due to what I said. I may not want to waste my 4 hangar bays for my battleships. Especially if he clumps up and eventually my fighters get shot down, since Mechanicus got a lot of point defense available to him. Never mind the fact that I always feel like it's a leap of faith sending fighters out across the map when it's so easy for him to kind of like get hit in or just run or just clump up in general like he could be doing right now. It kind of makes me wish that there's at least sometime in the future there may be some function that allows me to recall these if the situation turns out to be not favorable for me. At least it gives a little bit more control without adding complexity, I want to argue. I just don't know about balance, if that's going to affect balance at all or not. Otherwise, we have a battleship over there, so Arc Mechanicus. These are going to lose their point defense, I think, relatively well.
How may I serve the town?
In fact, I almost want to launch bombers now and get ready with that. Get ready to do our damage, and again, I gotta remember, Nova cannons. There's a lot of Nova cannons, so why not just spread out? At least it give me more room to move. That's kind of the important factor here, if I were to be honest. I don't know if I want to use Seeker missiles just yet, though, since I want to save those for the battleship, but I need to actually get at it, and with 2 ships in the way, I'm worried my fighters are going to get shot down with very little effect. As of right now, let's see, you lost half your point defense. This one's still strong, but yeah, I'm confident the bombers at least can safely do the run, since the fighters are going to be there for a full 9 seconds after all. I'm just trying to figure out when I want to launch my Seeker missiles. I think, again, if I can safely get at this Arc Mechanicus, which I would need fighters to kind of distract if I want to reliably hit it, that would probably be the only condition. And right now, I'm kind of prioritizing these 2 right now. Since right now, there's no Nova cannons, which I'm kind of thankful for. I don't know why, if I should be thankful for that or not. And actually, let me get ready to turn around, too. I am going to be backing up, since I don't have the firepower for a close-up engagement. And, wow. I'm curious, how did your point defense get built back up? I thought unless you did a repair, I don't know how exactly it functions if I were to be perfectly honest. It seems like I destroyed more point defense earlier, so I don't know why that is. Oh well, mark all you want. Oh, I didn't even capture this point. So I think what I do is prioritize now our dang Mechanicus once I get my fighters going. Take this thing out quickly. And preferably don't ram these things. I gotta get used to not rushing the move orders, if I were to be honest. Although it's bleeding damage there. Main reason yeah, it's mainly because I didn't know which one was the flagship, so I didn't want to I want to wait until I had that defensive screen.
You have seized a strategic area.
Maneuvering thrusters engaged.
Come on, you can go. Oh, it's just destroying my shield, isn't it? Not a big deal yet, but I gotta keep an eye out for that, because that opens up Nova cannons really well. And I have the speed to at least dodge these. That's fine. That's fine there. I'm dodging all of these really well. I take some hits, but only 1 Nova cannon. That I could not ask for better. It's probably the best I could ask for there in that regard. Oh, my opponent just could see it well. I think that demonstrates that went well. It makes it a little bit boring, doesn't it, for a YouTube video? But I think that just ultimately means we have time for one more match, just for the hell of it. Let's just hope it's a little more interesting than those last 2 have been. Alright, Imperial Navy. It remains to be seen if we're going to get ourselves a real match here, but the concept is still technically the same with the Adeptus Mechanicus. We still have Nova cannons to potentially worry about. I have a lot of fighters to help deal with torpedoes, so long as they're not point-blank range. Otherwise, I'm going to have to proactively launch fighters as opposed to reactionarily. Which can be a little bit problematic, since that means most of my fighters get shot down, or they're going to get distracted by either fighters from like a dictator or an emperor of some kind. So we'll see how this goes. Now, with that said, I'm losing my train of thought. I suppose I should be thankful that last match, which sounds like, no. Should I brag? Let's see. If a person asks if you are a god, should I say yes in this case? I probably should, but I have more important things to do. Let's see how this goes. That's all I'm gonna say there. It gives them a hint, so maybe it helps with their deployment some. I'm giving them a little bit of an advantage here. It's a question if they choose to use it or not. It was tempting, I'm not gonna lie. Well, I tried to give them the advantage, and apparently I just got information that was really useful for me.
How may I serve the town?
Because this is going to be effective. Yeah. It almost looks like 4 retributions. Is that possible? I'm not sure if that's true or not. Now I'm just going to go with the idea, hopefully, that my theory works out as I'm thinking. My explorers don't launch their fighters until the heroes do, which means I'm getting good use out of this, or at least I prioritize properly. So we got 2 swords here, or firestorms rather. Swords are the macro cannons, I gotta remember that. And I also need to spread out this fleet. Again, some wiggle room's always nice in case of Nova cans. That's always a big scare, isn't it? If I'm clumped up too much, it's not a huge issue, I suppose, since I do have like more hit points than a normal Tau protector fleet at least, but I'd rather avoid having multiple ships get hit if I can help it. I'm sure that's a fair... Ooh, let's see, we got Apocalypse here. Maybe it's 4 Apocalypses. Is that possible? This will be interesting. Although it's just a shame I launched my main fighters at, well, that's not the flagship, so I think that's a good sign of what we're up against. I don't think I want to get too close. So my opponent needs to deal with these effectively, and... Alright, we do have torpedoes, so... Retribution there. Oh, 3 retributions. I think, no, I'm miscounting a bit. I was thinking, it was a little bit tricky to tell the retribution because the extra torpedoes were a little bit odd. But I want to keep launching torpedoes, or fighters rather. And hopefully, I'm okay with dealing with these torpedoes head on and not actually trying to take evasive maneuvers. Since I don't think my fighters are going to shoot them very much since they're kind of already out on their mission. Oh no, they are shooting them some. Since they're not focusing on them, though, it's probably gonna hurt a bit. Oh, they're fires. Well, I might as well repair that, because that will come back up when the actual main fighting kicks in. So I don't think I'm too worried. Now, so far, this has been pretty straightforward, hasn't it? Although, I would have loved something that was a little more aggressive, something that or at least a player that would not have been afraid to get in my face for... Sure, I talk about how limited my railgun weaponry is, especially on the prow for like my heroes, but there's a lot of durability to this fleet at least. I can ram ships, and especially with, like I said with Chaos 4, these heroes can make effective ramming ships if they can hit the side. Sure, the railgun's not all that impressive, but that is something to seriously consider. And especially with the additional morale damage if they are not braced as well. Oh, and I'm losing ships, aren't I? I should not be playing with my food too much there, and especially when I'm not grabbing points. Actually, let me launch some more fighters. I was hoping to launch bombers, but let's continue to soften this thing up some. Now that my opponent's getting aggressive. And get ready to turn around and back off and get some more breathing room. Continue to soften them up. I should have paid attention to point defense, because in all seriousness, I probably didn't need this. I probably did not need to launch so many fighters, but my priority was the secret missiles, not so much the bombers in this case. Otherwise, can I prepare for these torpedoes? They're coming in one at a time almost, which does help with my point defense a little bit. Since, yeah, these would be my secret missiles right now if I didn't have the fighters to kind of distract. Oh, and it's an Apocalypse. I kind of forgot that factor, didn't I? And you're also my flagship. Another factor I did not really consider all that much. But I think we're doing good here. The Apocalypse, the point defense is pretty much gone except for that one ship there. So my Manta bombers can survive. Let's intercept though. Your supercharged void shield's not going to help you, I'm afraid.
How may I serve the town?
And also, let's get these broadsides pointed at them. Since the heroes will automatically do that, get a little bit extra fire in. I just gotta pay close attention to everything going on all the while. Get my dang frigates to join the fight. Oh, we killed the Retribution? I know something blew up. I wasn't paying attention in all honesty, though. Yeah, and this is a perfect example. I'm doing more ramming damage to them. Well, when you consider that the Imperial Navy now have spurs, which give them additional ramming damage, I don't know if they're actually doing more ramming damage to me, if I'm hitting them on the side, mind you. You would think the spurs will only factor on the prow, but I don't know if that's true or not. Otherwise, let's continue to murder these things. Nope, I hit... Ah, dang it. I wanted to go to brace for impact, and I just haphazardly activate reload, which that's another thing to keep in mind there. Apparently, the reload mechanic's also bugged, whereas rate of fire, and I think it even affects my bomber cooldowns, doesn't actually work if I were to go reload, which is kind of the reason why I haven't been doing it so far. But that is kind of really important if I want to rapid fire a bunch of fighters. Yeah, ugh, I lost my train of thought again, but I think there's nothing else to really be said here. It's just a matter of cleaning up at this point. So, like I said before, I kind of feel bad to a vague extent, but mainly because I know the feeling. I've been dealt with heavy bomber play before, but at least the lack of mobility is kind of like, oh, eventually, if you're prepared, account for it properly, is I suppose the right phrase to put on it, you are eventually going to get in close with the town merchant fleet. Since I just recently unlocked the additional speed, I don't know how much that alleviates that one fault, mind you. So it's possible I could kite a long time. But I already demonstrate the railgun potential of the hero at least. It's pretty pitiful if I want to use it to soak damage. And that's really the intention of why I have those heroes there in the first place. That and the secret missiles to kind of like punish any like disorganized play, or at least isolate ships. Or at least really valuable ships that I feel like I can hit hard with those missiles. Since the bombers are a little bit slower because they don't ignore armor, they just reduced armor value to like 50, which would be what Eldar and, well, the Eldari. Well, I think Eldari is just the Corsairs and Ashuriani. I don't know what the grand term would be for all three of these factions, including the Drukhari. I'm assuming they're still called Eldar. But I lost my train of thought again, damn it. It's a good demonstration. I feel bad for my opponents since, again, I dealt with this, but at least with the lower mobility, it doesn't seem as extreme. I would just have to personally play with it more to understand how that additional 25 speed would factor in to them being able to effectively kite, mind you.